Okay, so this is part four, and the where we left off was talking about the gates. Um, so what I wanted to pick back up on is I'll start at Jeremiah. Jeremiah 5 and um, 26. Okay, 5, Jeremiah 5 and 26. For among my people are found wicked men. They lay wait as he that setteth snares. They set a trap. They catch men. As a cage, verse 27, as a cage is full of birds, so are their houses full of deceit. Therefore they are become great and waxen rich. They are waxen fat. Verse 28, they are waxen fat. They shine. Yea, they overpass the deeds of the wicked. They judge not the cause. What cause? The cause. Let me just read. This is 28. I'll start again. They are waxen fat. They shine. Yea, they overpass the deeds of the wicked. They judge not the cause of the fatherless. Yet they prosper. And the right of the needy do they not judge. Shall I not visit for these things, saith the Lord? Shall not my soul be avenged on such a nation as this? 30. A wonderful and horrible thing is committed in the land. The prophets prophesy falsely, and the priests bear rule by their means, and my people love to have it so. And what will ye do in the end thereof? And so this is so very important to what we said. Now, of course, we are in captivity. So what we were going over before in part three, the judgments and things that were given to our people to do when wickedness was found, that can't be done. But the Most High is the judge, and this also is the importance of the Messiah. When you consider that, even if you go back to Deuteronomy 17, and I believe it's in verse 6, um, that you were to be judged under 2 or 3 witnesses, and that's why you were not to bear false witness. You were not to do that because of the judgments. So this was going on, and this is what this is telling you here. The righteous judgment was not being made. This is why the Messiah came, so that that law would be no longer, because people were being put to death, and they weren't being and things weren't right. It wasn't right. So under that law, that's the whole law that was done away with, and grace was brought in. This is what Isaiah is talking about. Learn to do well. Wash yourself, make you clean, and learn to do well. Put away the evil of your doings. The Messiah came and gave his life so that grace, as you read in Hebrews and also Romans, grace is not to be taken for granted. It is so that you can learn to do well and get it right. So to get this ordinance out of there, that you would be put to death, but that you would learn in your heart to do right, because the Messiah came and gave his life for you. So in your conscience, you should want to keep the laws of God and do what's right and love your neighbor as thyself, not covet, not steal, not bear false witness, not do any of these things because it's not right. Okay, look out for one another, and each other. Love one another as the Messiah goes into, like when he washed his disciples' feet. I mean, that's just so beautiful, because he's letting you know that we're our family. If I'm doing this for you and I'm your master, then you should do this for each other. This is what he says. So this is something that we need to understand, the importance of what we're reading here about the gates. See, the gates, the leaders of the people are not doing what's right. They themselves are not keeping the law, and they're not judging and teaching properly. So therefore everything is all out of order and out of course, and the people are all messed up. And how does this tie into the relationships and broken homes? It completely ties into it, because the men are not being taught to be men. um I also, before I get touch on that, so what we just read, the Most High, why he sends his prophets to tell the people right is because he is going to judge. And that's what we went into as far as the curses that were put on the people. These are judgments from the Most High. And he is going to judge. We talk about when you're dealing with whoremongers and adultery, all the plagues and the diseases and things. Those are judgments. The same thing like we read about in Proverbs chapter 6 about the wrath of a jealous man that catches his wife in adultery. What can happen and how that can be a judgment. All right. So the Most High is trying to save you from these things. So it, like we said before, also in part 1, okay, that is for your own good to do what's right that the Most High commands you to do for your own good. And just for the good of everyone in general. And once again, when we read it said that's the land fall to whoredom. I believe that was in Leviticus or was it Deuteronomy? We read about not prostituting your daughter, lest the land fall to whoredom and fall into wickedness. So certain acts will bring about a whole society of just wickedness. Period. And but I want to go to Micah. Okay, this is Micah chapter 3 verse 11. I'll start at 9. Micah chapter 3 verse 9. Hear this, I pray you, ye heads of the house of Jacob and princes of the house of Israel, that abhor judgment and pervert all equity. They build up Zion with blood and Jerusalem with iniquity. Verse 11. The heads thereof judge for reward, and the priests thereof teach for hire, and the prophets thereof divine for money. Yet will they lean upon the Lord and say, is not the Lord among us? None evil can come upon us. 12. Therefore shall Zion for your sake be plowed as a field, and Jerusalem shall become heaps and mountain of the house, and the mountain of the house as the high places of the forest. So basically iniquity and just destruction. Basically they're gonna be plowed as a field, and heaps of just destruction. The mountain of the house and the high places of the forest. And high places are places of worship. And you know, in other scriptures that you can get it there, those were pagan worships. And the Most High is going to judge for that. And so what he's telling you here is because the heads and in a nation of holy people, the priests and the people, the mouthpieces of the Most High, are the heads for these people, the priests and the prophets. So when you go into Matthew, the Messiah tells you, Matthew 24, that there will be many false prophets. And it all ties into Timothy. You know, when you get down to 2 Timothy 3 and I believe it's around verse 7, when it says that these people, the women, would be led away with, let's get it, 2 Timothy 3 and verse 6. For of this sort are they which creep into houses and lead captive silly women laden with sins, led away with diverse lusts. And this also turns that all of it ties into the false prophets, because this is who our people go to. This is who is who is supposed to know the laws of God and who's supposed to be teaching. And just like Micah says, they do that for hire. And this is in any and every single It all ties into like the flood also, and that's why it's a serious judgment for the false prophet, as you read in Revelation, because this is who our people listen to. This is who's supposed to be leading them. Let's get something. This is Malachi chapter 2 and verse 7. For the, well, we'll start at 6. I really want to start at 5. Um, let's start at 5. My covenant was with him of life and peace, and I gave them to him for the fear wherewith he feared me, and was afraid before my name. Verse 6. The law of truth was in his mouth, and iniquity was not found in his lips. He walked with me in peace and equity, and did turn many away from iniquity. Um, Verse 7, the most important part of what I'm trying to get out, or what I want the scriptures to speak to you, for you to hear, is that for the priest's lips should keep knowledge, and they should seek the law at his mouth, for he is the messenger of the Lord of hosts. Okay, so that is extremely important when you consider what we just covered, what we just went over in Micah, and we were talking about before in part 3 about the heads and the gates. For our people, it's the priests, because we are the people of God. We are the people of the Most High. So we are supposed to be the example for the world. The priests are the heads are supposed to be teaching us to do that. Once again, we go back to Jeremiah 14, and I believe it's 3. The vessels are empty. There's no water. The people have gone to the pits and to the wells, and they're dry. So and why are they dry? Because there's no knowledge. There's no knowledge, and there's also, and this is the most important part, okay, of everything, is the people need to be taught who they are, what the Most High is requiring of them, and what we should be doing to please Him, so that He'll be with us and won't bring judgment on us. So how does all of this tie into the bad relationships, the abusive relationships, the single parent homes, just the destruction of the nation? You know that nations are made up of people, families. Families, people make up a family, families make up a nation, and there are leaders and heads, gates of that. And our people do not have that. That has been completely taken away from us, because the Most High has judged us for not keeping His laws. And all of that falls into what we went into in part 1 about the curses of Deuteronomy 28. The man shall leave, okay? The eye shall be evil towards their brother, and towards the wife of his bosom. Alright, the woman's eye shall be evil towards her husband, and towards her children. So this is a mess. You can't have families like that. Families like that make up a nation, and then therefore you have the nation the way it is. And then once again, you're talking about Timothy, the type of people and the certain attributes and characteristics of people in this time that lead up to these type of things. We want to talk about the anger issues of our men, and then you're dealing with abuse. I mean, and sometimes it can be the other way around. I mean, I heard, many stories from even older people, telling about how the women wanted their men to fight. They would provoke their men to fight them, because I guess somehow the mental confused type of way, that's how they figured that the man loved them. Now how they got to that, who knows? Only the Most High knows. But I mean, it's a mess, and this is how it all ties together. You can't have families like that and expect them to prosper. They don't. They won't. And so that is the whole point of why I did this, because of a really traumatic situation that happened. And I, what the details of it are, I don't know. I don't like to speak on things that I don't know everything about. I don't do that. But it prompted me to do this because it happened so much that it's just a lot, and the abuse factor
before it led to what happened, was part of things, but also it was so many things. And like I said, I don't know, but all the things that we touched on, you're talking adultery, you're talking betrayal, you're talking, just not loving your neighbor as yourself. And, you cannot have a successful family like that. You can't have a successful nation without successful families. I mean, that's just period. One thing really important in the situation that I want to get and bring out is Matthew. Okay, this is Matthew chapter 12 and verse 25. And Jesus knew their thoughts and said unto them, Every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and every city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And once again, we're talking about precepts. The precept to really bring this out, especially for this point, is Mark 3 and 24. And if a kingdom be divided against itself, that kingdom cannot stand. And the key to the point that I would like to make, what that the scriptures that are bringing out, is verse 25. And if a house be divided against itself, that house cannot stand. And I want to jump to 27. No man can enter into a strong man's house and spoil his goods, except he first bind the strong man, and then he will spoil his house. So this is so important as to what we talked about before about the homes. The women and children are spoiled. The men are the strong men of the house. Unless the men have been bound, the adversary can't come in and spoil the goods. So this is why the men are so important, and why it's so important for men to stand up and be men. But first of all, you have to be men of the Most High, so that He's dealing with you. So that you're able to stand. Okay? Just like when you read in Psalms 81, oh Israel, if Israel had listened to him, then no one would have been able to overcome him. Okay? If a kingdom is divided against itself, a kingdom cannot stand. The nation, our nation is falling down. I mean, it's horrible. And a house, just like we said before in part 3, is made up of nations. A nation is made up of homes and families. A house cannot stand if it's divided against itself. So this is the importance of understanding who you are, and most importantly, keeping the commandments and keeping the law of our God. When you read Ecclesiastes 12 and 13, the conclusion of the whole matter is to fear God. This is the whole duty of man, is to fear. Let's get it. Ecclesiastes 12 and 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep His commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. And that's just the bottom line of things. So when you want to talk about all the problems with the children, all the problems that happen when you're in a single parent home, all the oppression and the persecution that happens to those mothers and children, whether they understand it or not. And once again, people can always say, well, that's not the case because this, that, and the third. But then what ideologies are you subscribing to? What are you really dealing with? Is it this? Because if you're not truly following the commandments, then the Most High is not dealing with you. People forget that the adversary can also reward. The adversary will reward you when you bow down and worship him. And he doesn't play fair. He will trick you. Just like it tells you in Corinthians. Let's get it. Or he can if you're not doing what the Most High says. See, this is the whole point, and this is also so key as to what I'm talking about, and as far as these people playing the blame game, and what I talked about in part one about how the women also will blame the women. Oh, you decided to deal with this person, and that's what you get, you know, for dealing with this person. And one thing that I saw on, but let me stop right there and get the scripture. This is 2 Corinthians chapter 11 and verse 3. But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtlety, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ. For if he that cometh preacheth another Jesus whom we have not preached, or if ye receive another spirit which ye have not received, or another gospel which ye have not accepted, you might well bear with him. And so that is very important to understand, that the serpent beguiled Eve. So, and then Adam blamed her when the Most High confronted him and said, why are you naked? And when you go into certain scriptures, it's not just talking about a physical nakedness. Well, let me get there, because I didn't say that correctly. When the Most High came and asked them, when the Lord came and asked them, how did you know that you were naked? Then he knew that he had eaten from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, which he told them not to eat, and then Adam blamed Eve. But the point here is that she was deceived because she didn't listen to her head, who was Adam, and Adam did not listen to his head, who was the Most High. And it's very important to understand that order. Let's get that order. This is 1 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 3. But I would have you know that the head of every man is Christ, and the head of the woman is the man, and the head of Christ is God. Okay, so that order was broken when the adversary went to Eve and told her something else, and she disobeyed her head, and then Adam, her head, disobeyed his head. Okay, it was the Lord. So, you know, the whole point that I'm making, like I brought out and I've been bringing out in each part of this, is pointing the finger isn't going to change things. And why I say that is because, once again, with this, I saw some things where people were saying, oh, it's about to be Father's Day, this, that, which is another tradition of men that doesn't have anything to do with scripture. But people were saying all the bitter baby mamas who chose the wrong person are going to be trying to say this and say that. But that is part of the Willie Lynch syndrome, where it empowers the woman but weakens the man. And it weakens a man when you continually allow them to not do what they're supposed to do. When you have a mindset like that, that's like saying it's your fault, woman, that you chose the wrong man. When we know that men, like we talked about in Deuteronomy, will entice a woman and will deal with the woman and treat a woman good for a certain amount of time, so they decide that they want to go somewhere else, or they decide they don't want to do it anymore. And then there's no laws of God enforced or taught saying, no, you can't put that woman away, you have to do it. See, that when I hear it and see things like that, you understand the ignorance of that. And you can't blame a woman solely, because that's allowing the man to be off the hook, instead of people saying these men need to step up and do what they need to do. Because it is far, it would be different if this wasn't a situation that happens often. It would be different if this wasn't the case in a lot of our homes in our so-called black community. It would be different if this wasn't the case often, more than not. You would say, well, you know, there's something wrong, you know, why did you? No, but when it is so much to the point where somebody can say, wait a minute, what's wrong with these men? And where are the men? We're also forgetting a lot of of our men are being killed, and all these things that are set out there for us because we're not keeping the laws. The violence. So a lot of them are being killed or incarcerated because they're selling or whatever it is that they're doing. You know, um, all of these things are taking the men out of the homes. Or these men that have, like I mentioned in part one, or was it part two, about they have this mentality that doesn't go past a teenage boy. Whereas though they don't want to stand up and be responsible. Okay? So this is the problem. So when you have people, so not only you have men saying, you chose the wrong man, why you did that, you should, but then you have the women saying it too. But what we never sit and look at is, why is there so many men like that then? I mean, why? Why? What is wrong with our people that it's so many men like that? And then when you listen to the music and looking at the people that they're watching nowadays, it's even bringing out an even more effeminate vibration. Let's get something in Kings. And this here is very, very key to this whole thing. All right, this is First Kings chapter 2 and verse 1. Now the days of David drew nigh that he should die, and he charged Solomon his son, saying, I go the way of all the earth. Be thou strong, therefore, and show thyself a man. Verse 3. And keep the charge of the Lord thy God, to walk in his ways, to keep his statutes and his commandments and his judgments and his testimonies, as it is written in the law of Moses, that thou mayest prosper in all that thou doest, and whithersoever thou turnest thyself. This is so important to everything that we're just discussing, because our men are not men. They're not standing up and presenting themselves as men. They're not showing themselves as men. And why is that? Because what we just read in verse 3, they are not keeping the charge of the Lord thy God and walking in his ways and keeping his statutes. And the first and number one, just like the Messiah said, is this. Let's get what he said. Okay, so this is Matthew chapter 22 and verse, we'll start at verse 35 or 34 so you understand who this is talking about and what's going on. Matthew 22 and 34. But when the Pharisees had heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence, they were gathered together. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him and saying, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? And Yeshua, or Jesus, said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. On these two commandments hang all the law and the prophets. And I want to go to chapter 19, Matthew chapter 19 and verse 16. And it says, And behold, one came and said unto him, Good master, what good thing shall I do that I may have eternal life? And he said unto him, Why callest thou me good? There is none good but one, that is the Most High, that is God. But if thou wilt enter into life, keep the commandments. He saith unto him, Which? Yeshua, or Jesus, said, Thou shalt do no murder, thou shalt not commit adultery, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness. Honor thy father and thy mother. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. The young man said unto him, All these things have I kept from my youth up. What lack I yet? Yeshua said unto him, If thou wilt be perfect, go and sell that thou hast, and give to the poor, and thou shalt have treasure in heaven, and come and follow me. But when the young man heard that saying, he went away sorrowful, for he had great possessions. And here's this is the importance of this whole thing and why we're in here. Because when you love your neighbor as yourself, you're going to, just like he said in chapter 22, This hang all the when you love the Most High, okay, with all thy heart and thy mind and thy soul, and you love thy neighbor as thyself, this hang all the prophets and the law. When you do that, when you love the Most High, you're going to do what He says to do, and He tells you to love your neighbor as yourself. And all the other things that come with the law and things that we're commanded to do revolve around treating someone as you would want to be treated. And if you love the Most High, then you're going to do that. You're going to do that. You're going to love your neighbor as yourself. And you're not going to do all of the things that the law speaks against. And then first and foremost, some of the things dealing with certain sexual acts and things, that has to do with loving yourself too. Because a lot of what we're talking about, even with people being selfish and things like that, and the type of people, they're like we talked about the abuse and how they have been through certain things. So our people in general in this condition of having been in captivity, our self-esteem as a nation has been broken. So a lot of times when you do certain things, you don't even care about yourself. So you certainly can't love someone if you don't even know and understand who you are, and that you are someone, and that you are worth something. You're worth more than just sexual attributes and just things that don't require thought and carnal things. When you really understand that, then you love yourself, and so then you're able to love your neighbor as yourself. Because a lot of things that you see people do, you can't possibly love yourself and you do those things. You can't possibly. There's no way. So I went there to show the importance of what the Messiah is about and what he's saying. Keep the commandments. And that hangs all the law and the prophets. When you love the Most High, you're not going to worship idols. You're not going to do things that he says not to do. And when you consider how important that is based on society today, and how ideas of love are carnally introduced to you, they're carnally portrayed. As far as when you think of all of these pagan traditional things of men that people keep, they always require, if you haven't paid attention, they always require some kind of monetary sacrifice. They always require you having to buy something, having to buy gifts and things like that in order to show your love. When just like we said in Corinthians, lest you be beguiled by the adversary like Eve was, and that the simplicity of Christ. Christ is simple. He doesn't require all these things to show love. He doesn't require all of these things that the society tells you is what makes you something. That isn't required of him. He's simple. But the society makes things complicated. And that's another thing that Paul talks about. Unless someone come and preach you another Jesus who we have not preached, and you receive another spirit. Alright? And that is what has happened. Alright, there's another Christ that's being preached out here as far as what he looks like, and as far as everything that is represented. That's the mark of the beast. I mean, that's just point blank. So the point that I'm making is, and that's a mindset I'm talking about. That is what you think is what it has to do with God. And that's what's presented by a lot of the false prophets, that it's a monetary, carnal thing that shows love. And that just simply isn't true. That's not the God of the Bible. That's not the Christ of Scripture. No, it's not. So that also is another thing that, like we talked about in part 1, that contributes to the low self-esteem of a man. And when they feel as though they cannot, and in reality, but the idea that is presented in society that you have to do to be what you would call successful or whatever, they can't do that a lot of times. And so then that makes them feel less than a man, and that causes all kinds of anger issues and abuse. It really does. So I think that I'm just going to end it here, but it's just so important to remember Ecclesiastes, to fear the Most High, and that is keep the commandment. That is the whole duty of man. And when you do that, then then He'll be with you. Then He'll bless you with wisdom, and you'll be able to prosper. I'm gonna like we read in Kings, like he said to his son Solomon, show thyself a man. Keep the charge of the Lord thy God. Keep his commandments and walk in his ways and keep his laws and statutes and judgments. That is how you're going to prosper. I'm going to go to Joshua. And then I'm just going I'm going to go to Joshua and I'm going to get something else in Timothy and then I'll leave it there. And let's see. This is Joshua. Um, this is a precept to two Kings, First Kings chapter 3, Joshua 1 and let's see, I'll start at 1 and 8. This is Joshua, the book of Joshua, chapter 1, verse 8. This book of the law shall not depart out of thy mouth, but thou shalt meditate therein day and night, that thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. For then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then thou shalt have good success. And that's just the bottom line. Now, I'm gonna go to Timothy. This is First Timothy chapter 5, verse 8. But if any provide not for his own, and especially for those of his own house, he hath denied the faith, and is worse than an infidel. And that totally goes into once again precept to First Kings that we went to chapter 3, because when you show thyself a man, that's what you do. You provide for your own, and it all ties in together. An infidel. What is an infidel? So this is the definition of an infidel. There are many definitions here, but we're gonna go with a person who has no religious faith, an unbeliever, a person who disbelieves or doubts a particular theory, belief, creed, a skeptic, not accepting a particular faith, um, a heathen. So basically, if you claim that you love the Most High and you do and keep His commandments, if you don't provide for your own, that you're a liar. You're an infidel. So that's just what it is. And I'm gonna leave it here, and I pray that someone was blessed by this, these parts to this this series of thoughts that I had as far as some of the conditions of our people and why there are terrible relationships, why there are no relationships, why our nation is broken down the way it is. And with that, I'm going to say shalom. And I pray for my people. I truly do. And if you can't receive it or don't have some understanding of this, pray to the Most High for understanding. So because it is so important. There really is nothing else for our people. There isn't. And once again, just as what I've talked about in just about all the parts, that solely is based upon you understanding who you are. And so with that, I will say. And something else that I really need to add, which is extremely important, and I cannot leave this out, is Ephesians chapter 5, and I'll start at verse
Verse 20, I'll start at verse 20. Giving thanks always for all things unto the Most High and the Father, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting yourselves one to another in the fear of the Most High. Wives, submit yourselves unto your own husbands as unto the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the savior of the body. And we kind of touched on this when we went to Corinthians about the order of things. And one of the other issues that really truly is a problem for our community is because the way we're brought up, and like I talked about also about kind of like the women being empowered. We are not taught to be in subjection, so that and that also causes a lot of issues because men are men and they know in their spirit that they should be treated and respected as such, but they don't get that a lot of times from their women because of the way things are and the way we're kind of groomed in this society. Like I said, where though the women are kind of like out of order. So um this is so very important. Verse 23, for the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he is the savior of the body. Therefore, as the church is subject unto Christ, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. And that is another thing that goes into the importance of the men being men of the Most High. And women cannot do that when they're going to be misled or mistreated. It's extremely difficult to try to put yourself into subjection to someone that can't think past a teenager. Like I said before, it seems like there's this spirit of arrested development on our men, whereas though the actions that they do and their mindset doesn't go past a teenage boy, and it's a woman can't put herself into subjection to someone like that. So everything is like we said in Psalms 82, all things are out of course. But this is so very important for the men to be righteous men, so that the women will know that they're safe and know that they can do that, know that they can totally be in subjection to their husband. See, that is so extremely important. So I had to put this in because it pretty much is also basically the whole point of a lot of this whole video series, because everything is out of order because the men are not. So let's continue. This is Ephesians verse 25, and this is also the importance of what I just said, why it's so important to for men to be men of the Most High. And that is, this is verse 25, husbands, love your wives even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it. So the Messiah came and died for his wife, which is the nation of Israel. And he that is the mindset of a husband, to care and love and protect and be willing to die for your family, for your wife, for your so that is what he did for us. So the men totally do not have that mindset anymore. Everything is out of order. So that is a very important point. And I had to put that in there because that is the gist of everything that we're talking about as far as relationships in our community and some of the major issues and things being out of order. All right, and let's also go to verse 26, that he might sanctify and cleanse it with the washing of the water by the word. That verse 27, that he might present it to himself a glorious church, not having spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but that it should be holy and without blemish. Verse 28, so ought men to love their wives as their own bodies. He that loveth his wife loveth himself. Verse 29, for no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but nourisheth and cherisheth it, even as the Lord the church. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. For this cause shall a man leave his father and mother, and shall be joined unto his wife, and they two shall be one flesh. This is a great mystery, but I speak concerning Christ and the church. Nevertheless, let every one of you in particular so love his wife, even as himself, and the wife see that she reverence her husband. And that pretty much sums up everything that was just said. There's nothing else to say. That's very clear. That is so very clear. And so with that, I will say shalom.